I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to the Libertarian Podcast review. This is Tyler Yonke. Let's see if we already got some comments. Some people already coming in. That's great to hear. Today, we have a wonderful guest. We have Drew Hancock of I'm going to confuse it. Lockoutdays. With your liberty and your locks and your days. Drew, welcome to the show. Thank you. It's been a long time coming. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me on, Tyler. I know that, we followed each other on Twitter forever, and then you started doing this show. So yeah, it's good to, thanks for having me on.
Yes. So I will say you're somewhat of a problem and an inspiration all in one, because you had started you blew up. Everyone knows, but they should go check out your videos that you've pulled down. And we'll talk about that as well. You blew up. You had said in one of your videos, hey, just do something for liberty, whatever it is. Maybe start a podcast. And I'm like, hey, podcast, that's something not many people are doing. So I decided to start a podcast, and kind of you're pushing me into that. But I'd had one from before from other things. But why are you taking all your videos down from YouTube and Odyssey? I know you've probably answered that question, but I really enjoyed them. And whether you have felt the need to change your mind at all, I always think it's good to go back and see where you've evolved. So what's your stance?
So there's a couple of videos that I have that to be honest, I just don't like at all. That being said, they are all back available on the YouTube channel. On the Odyssey channel, probably not going to re-upload them all, but they're all available on the YouTube channel if people want to watch them. So they were taken off for about a month. And that was just me kind of thinking about, like, do I want to be known for like politics, or do I want to like do something else? And there was a good month where like I was not tweeting about politics. I basically just turned into like a shit posting account, and I would just tweet jokes. Now I'm kind of back into the whole political thing. So it was mostly just that, but I mean, they're all back now.
Well, so which ones didn't you like, and for what reason? Was it quality? I mean, you told me you're getting a new mic. I don't know if that's a problem, but...
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a mixture of a lot of things. So like my first few videos, like in terms of quality, I'm just not a fan of the quality of those videos. Like, it's kind of painful to watch. But in terms of videos that I don't really agree with, I would say I still agree with pretty much everything. My video on big tech and Section 230, that video, like, looking back in hindsight, no, I don't think that Section 230 should be repealed. And I actually sent a few tweets about that today. But otherwise, I would say that there's no videos I put out where like I completely disagree with everything I said in them. It's mostly just about quality and whether or not, I wanted to be like in the political thing, which, it is what it is.
I enjoyed a bunch of them. And I've actually tweeted to you that I had sent some of the college ones to my kids, because I think it's very important. My son's going to college. I just don't think it's easy for him to learn nursing on his own. That's probably not something you're going to be able, hey, I'm going to just go randomly give some people a catheter. So he probably needs college for that. But I did send it to him because I always want the kids to be thinking about alternatives. And as an example, my son has been able to work on cars and figure that whole thing out from YouTube videos. So it's outstanding. Have you thought of then just redoing some of those same videos, kind of upping them and maybe, up to spec that you would want?
I have considered that. There's one video in particular, I'll just say it. I think it's the case for radical messaging, or the libertarian case for radical messaging.
Yeah.
That video is so of course, I'm my own harshest critic. So
right.
You watching it, people watching it, they probably think it's totally fine. To me, it's so just painful to watch and sit through that one, mostly because of the audio quality. So I had just got my microphone and I didn't know what I was doing. And I think I had like a sore throat whenever I was recording it. So like my voice sounds all weird. There's a couple jokes in that I think are more cringe than funny. Just stuff like that. So I did seriously consider redoing that video, because that's one of the ones that got like several thousand views. And that's the one that got me on Larry Sharp's show. That's the first show I ever did. And he reached out to me because of that one. But I don't think I'm going to, like you said. And I think about this with other creators. There are creators where, like Video Game Donkey, I'll go back to his old videos just to see like how he started and see like, oh yeah, his stuff is a lot better now than it was back then. And I think that is interesting. And yeah, I don't really want to like George Lucas it, where he did with the Star Wars trilogy, where he like just completely ruined them. So I mean, Nah, I'm not going to.
Well, first of all, we have a fan here. Beard Drew is best Drew. Okay. Well, I'm not
appreciate
going
that.
to take an opinion either way. You seem fine. So look, the video stuff, Larry Sharp, you stole one of my things, because that's exactly the first person I saw you on. I was going to question you about how did your people reach out to him? How did that come about? And that was a pretty big deal, I would imagine. This guy runs for governor of New York. He's pretty high up in the LP, and suddenly you are not even 20 years old, or maybe you were 20 at the time, and you spark an interview there. How'd that come about?
Yeah, so I did that video, the Libertarian Case for Radical Messaging, and Dave Smith tweeted that one out, as well as he did like the blue pill video, and then he did that one. So that, I'm assuming, is how Larry saw it, and he just sent me a Twitter DM and asked like, hey, when I come on my show Wednesday, and this was probably Sunday or Monday, and I was incredibly nervous. Like, I don't know if it comes across in that video, but like, heart racing, million beats per second.
Yeah.
Like at that time, I was still a 20-year-old kid working in banking who just randomly decided to start doing videos. And all of a sudden I have Larry Sharp wanting to quiz me on why I think the Libertarian Party should be radical. It was very nerve-wracking, but Larry's a really nice guy. And so I joined that call like 15 minutes early. And before the show, he was like just talking to me, and he got me like calmed down and stuff. But yeah, he's a really nice guy. I really like Larry, and that was a good experience.
That was probably a really good one to start with. As you said, he calmed you down. That was one that I used to have very few notifications on Twitter. And for some reason, Larry Sharp was, I checked when it's a live video. So that one popped up. I remember I was driving around doing something and I saw you on there, and yeah, he was quizzing you about, and you guys had some pushback, and so I thought you did really well. Did you do anything to prepare for this? Because he was asking you about philosophy and how a libertarian would basically handle certain situations. What have you done to prepare yourself for that? Have you been arguing like Ace on Twitter, or just being, friends or whatnot?
Well, I mean, if you look at like my Twitter today, I've been arguing with people. Typically, I don't. Typically, I just try to be funny. And, the past couple of days with some tweets that I've made, I've had all sorts of people come at me for various reasons. So I've been arguing more lately, but mostly I just tweet like funny stuff. But with the Larry Sharp interview specifically, I did no preparation. Like it was mostly just me being nervous all day and then hopping on and doing it. But yeah, I was worried, like, did I do a good job? Like, did I sound stupid? Or, whatever. But then afterwards, I got a text from my dad saying I killed it. And then like my uncle called me and was like, Drew, you did a great job. So I was like, I guess I did all right. And then from there, I started doing more of them. And as time goes on, you stop being nervous, and it's just like, it's just a call.
Yeah. So were you nervous at all when you went on Austin Peterson's radio show? It's a little bit different dynamic there than, I guess it might be the same, but it's old school terrestrial radio. Were you nervous for that one, or just early wake up?
Yeah, early wake up too. Definitely. That was I think I woke up at like 6 o'clock, which for most people, 6 o'clock, like I don't think that's too out of line, but for Drew, who likes to sleep in kind of late, that was pretty hard. Right. But yeah, Austin, he was really nice, and I was nervous for that one just because it was the radio. But I mean, that was probably one of the easiest ones I did. That was maybe 5 minutes of just me talking about abortion. But yeah, I was nervous for that one. But for the most part, I don't get nervous anymore. If I were to go on like part of the problem, then yeah, I would probably have a higher heart rate.
Yeah, but even, yeah, you probably would. But, with the dynamic where it's just, especially part of the problem, where it's just two of you really talking, and it's going to be uploaded later, where, you do a live show and, a lot of people can tune in at a different time. That's a little bit different. So, yeah, but when are you going on part of the problem? Did you get that arranged?
That's a Dave Smith question. I don't know. I'll go on whenever. Like, maybe I can find a spot in my schedule to go on part of the problem. We'll have to see.
So you need to get some sort of niche, right? Clint got on there because he was talking about mortgage. Well, you worked at a bank, you said. So what's your take on FDIC insurance, and why is Sal the agorist against it?
I don't know anything about Sal the agorist except that he steals my tweets.
Right.
Well, listen, I'll tell you what was funny about working at the bank, because, I have I'm a Ron Paul supporter and all of, that stuff. But like my boss would try to explain interest rates to me, and, I would pretend like, oh, interest, I have no idea about interest rates. Well, and people would tell me like, yeah, well, I'm going to take out a CD but I'll wait till the interest rates go back up. And it's like, I know that they're never going to go back up, but like, should I tell this person that? I always would. But, everyone else I'd work with would be like, yeah, just wait till the interest rates go back up. And it's like, yeah, they're never going to. So there was a lot of pretending to not know things and a lot of like, oh yeah, I love banking. They're not fascist at all.
Right.
But I mean, I think that I've mentioned my banking experience a little bit in my big tech video. But I mean, for any like children watching this, so David Brady, I see you in the comments. Banking is a very good way to get your career started after high school. So I would, if you don't know what you want to do, consider that.
Yeah, not wrong. I had done some work when I was in college. I did temp jobs every once in a while, and banking would be one that you could kind of get in and learn, different areas. And so that worked out for me. And then later on, I actually worked as a trader, and they had banking aspects to there. So yes, LIBOR and interest rates and all that good stuff. We actually did have interest rates for CDs at the time. That was so long ago that you could get, 7-10% on something. And it's probably negative now.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. Now like a year-long CD is like 0.5%.
Yeah.
They're awful. But like, yeah, with that. So like I had been working in fast food prior to that. Like I was in high school, I worked at Arby's, and then I worked at Subway. And then I was like, you know what? I'm tired of working in fast food. So let me see what's available. There was a bank literally like 5 minutes from my house. I was like, I'll apply there. And then they hired me. And then the rest is history.
Well, you're still building history. One thing that's, I think it's good to do, like you did there, in moving out of like the restaurant industry to banking, is the hours, right? Not having to work on the weekends. Maybe you have the Super Bowl off. Was that, good stuff for you then?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big part of it. So in fast food, you're working Saturday and Sunday, you're working evenings. The bank, I was actually attending free college. Like I was a freeloader getting free community college at the time. So I would go to class in the morning, and then from 2 to 6, I would work at the bank. And that was cool too, because I could show up early and they would still let me clock in. So I would show up at like 1:30, even though I wasn't supposed to come in at 2. But yeah, that's a big part of it. You get every Sunday off, so you never have to worry about working on Sunday. So you get to watch the Chiefs. You don't have to worry about missing that. You get all the federal holidays off. It's a pretty good gig. It's way better than fast food. I can tell you that.
I would agree. Yeah, and you do get a lot of banking holidays. I'm an attorney. I get court holidays, but that just means those are days I don't get to go to court, or I still have to pay my legal assistance. David Brady, he's joining us in here. He says, have you considered a show of your own, maybe just Odyssey?
I have considered doing a show of my own. I don't think I will. Maybe sometime in the future, but I don't really want to.
I liked one of your and I played it on one of my which one was it? You're doing like podcast of the week, I think it was, where you did your everybody's podcast. What?
Yeah.
Where do you come up with these ideas? Why are you so insane on some of this stuff?
I had another idea for a video that I had spent the entire week working on. I don't even remember what it was, but it involved Nazis somehow. And it just did not work. And it was going to be awful had I uploaded it. So I was like, what can I think of doing really quick and get out tomorrow? So at like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m, that was the idea I had. And I was just like, let's just do it and see how it turns out. And it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, it was funny. It was spot on, I might even say. Tell me about your editing process and stuff you did with when you were doing these full time. Now, look, are you going to get back into them? I'm not really quite sure. You posted them back up. Are you going to get back in kind of that format that you were doing, the jump cuts, all the good stuff with, okay, you're going to do that.
So part of why I haven't done that is because, I'm waiting for my new microphone to come in, which should come in tomorrow. Mostly just because of what takes me the longest to do now is the audio, because I will re-record the same thing, the same line 10 times over and over again until I think that it's perfect. And part of that is just because of the audio quality of my current microphone just isn't very good. And I have to speak like perfectly to think that it's fine. And even then, I still don't think that it sounds very good. So that's a big part of it, just being a perfectionist and waiting to have the right equipment. But and that would also take a lot of time off of it, because if I can just record things once as opposed to 10 times, then that would make it way easier. So there's that. And I mean, yeah, there's no one else I think really doing videos like that in this space. So I think that is kind of my niche and where I could be different. That's something where I have experience. I think if you look at my first video compared to the video I did, Live Your Life, I think that you can tell there's a substantial increase in fidelity, or quality. And it is one of those things to where I started editing videos like 7 years ago, whenever I was still in high school. And for a long time, I was doing them in Windows Movie Maker, and I was putting out these weird videos. And that's kind of where I learned a lot about like the YouTube algorithm and how to edit videos and make them funny through editing. And after a while, so yeah, the end of 2020, I decided, let me buy a real editing software and let me do libertarian stuff, because that's what I know, that's what I can talk about. And I saw that there was this niche that no one was kind of filling. And yeah, I did it and it started to take off. But before that, like, I do videos all the time. I have a second channel that I upload to. No one knows that I run it and no one knows what the channel is, but I make a lot of videos and it's good to practice like that. I like the editing. It's a lot of fun. I think that making things funny through editing is just funny and fun in and of itself.
Yeah, I agree. So Jose says the trick to editing is not doing it, which he's completely right for himself. So let me ask you. So I've done a bunch of editing stuff too. I have the GoPro. I like to do this. I've used Premiere Pro, and now I'm using DaVinci. What are you using? Because I'm not using the Windows, other stuff. Are you using a good program for your editing?
I am using a very mediocre program called Wondershare Filmora.
Yeah, I've used that too.
Yeah, so I do have Premiere, and I'm trying to learn on it to get better at it. But I mean, Wondershare works fine. But like I said, I was using Windows Movie Maker before, so like if I got a duct tape and baling wire or something together, like I can do it. A lot of my editing is thinking like this would be funny, and then just figuring out how to make it happen. So like that's kind of how I learn, just by like, let me just mess around and just see what happens. Let me think of things that I want to do and then just figure out how to do them.
So I found your videos when I've watched them before. I watch them in total, or sometimes I'm driving around and YouTube is playing and I'm listening to it, and I realize that's not the way to go about, because you've put some little nugget in there, and I've had to slow-mo stop them before for some of those things. Your process of making these, are you kind of mapping them out, or have you just randomly, that's a thought, and then I'm going to go and search for this file photo?
So my first video on Blue Pill Libertarians, I wrote the script out, and then I thought like funny things that I could have in. So at that time I was really nervous. Like I didn't want to have my voice heard by people or anything. So I wanted to do as much of the video as possible before I did like a voiceover or anything. So like the Dave Rubin saying "fuck no" at Joe Jorgensen, like that was something I had thought of prior. The girl talking about the Dobby the house elf, that was something I had thought of prior. And then it was like creating a video to kind of connect all of these things together. So now the way that I do it is I write out a script. So it's basically like me just writing an article or a post or something. So I basically just write out a script and then I voice it over. I think of, with the script, I try to, throw in jokes and stuff like that, but a lot of it is just through the editing. And then after I do that, I think of like, what goes with this, what goes with that. While I'm adding visuals to the voiceover, I think of ways that I can make it funny. But yeah, writing the script comes first and foremost. And then after that, I think of ways to make it more interesting on top of that. But it is a lot of like, I'm really good with movie references. And like, if I watch a movie, like I'm really good at quoting them and stuff. So a lot of the clips are just things like, I don't know. It's just somehow like there will be a weird clip and I'll just remember something. And it's like, oh yeah, that goes perfectly with this.
So some of your videos are, the philosophy is pretty deep in there, and you've walked your way through some logical explanations and some rationale that I enjoy. And so I'm wondering, to some extent, you must be writing a script out, I imagine, for this, because, and then you've decided not to do a Substack or anything. You're just doing a video instead. I mean, it's really, right? I mean, so some people are like, why are you doing a podcast? I'm like, because I've got these voices in my head, and I want to like, basically, I'm out riding my bike, I'm listening to podcasts. I have a lot to say about it. I want to put that out there. And this is an easier format than trying to do, how many different 144 characters. So have you thought of like writing hey, do a book and then you'll be verified on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. I have thought about doing a Substack. I mean, maybe I will, because we'll just see. I don't know how interesting the things that I write would be without the visual element. But at the same time, in my first video, there's way more like hokey stuff and like jokes and stuff, because I didn't think that anyone would be interested in listening to me talk. And I thought that I had to throw all of these extra things in to keep people's attention.
Right.
And then it turned out that no, people like listening to me speak. So I've since cut that out a little bit. So, I mean, maybe I would be surprised if I started a Substack. Who knows? Maybe I should just upload like the pure scripts.
No, you're doing fine. Voice. You've mentioned before is some people might not want to hear your voice. I had someone reach out to me. Well, I won't name him unless he wants me to. Concerned about his voice on podcasts. I'm like, look, I don't have a Clint voice or some great voice. It's grating to me myself, but someone will still listen to the podcast if you're entertaining or you're joking or you've got something good to say. So is that do you listen to podcasts, and is that something that would make you just turn a podcast off?
No, well, listen, everyone hates their own voice, like, pretty much. And now I'm used to it. Like, after you listen to it for long enough, you get fine with it. So now it's like, whatever, I'm just a person. So, I mean, whoever this is, I mean, I'm sure that your voice is totally fine. But with podcasts, whenever I was working in banking, so the second bank I worked at two. The second bank I worked at, they would have single closers. So for the last hour, it would just be me there by myself. So what I would do is, this would be every Monday and Wednesday and Friday, I would turn on Part of the Problem and listen to Dave Smith while I was alone at the bank. And that was it. Since I stopped working at the bank and since I started doing videos, like, I just don't have the time like I used to. So I don't really listen to podcasts anymore. If it's like one of my friends is on a podcast, and I'll try to listen to it, but otherwise I don't really anymore.
Yeah, they get very time consuming. I'm a kind of person that no matter really what I'm doing, I'm listening or watching TV. And I'm doing some pretty high level work at times. And I think it's the white noise that just kind of takes it away. And so then I can actually clearly think. But so I'm listening to podcasts all day long. Although sometimes I have to, there was just one recently. It was Keith Knight and Ace, and they were like a 3-hour. And by the way, I finally finished it yesterday, and I tweeted out because it really was one of the best podcasts I've heard in a while, that those two broke it down like it was a deposition, and it was fantastic. And they did it in an entertaining way. So kudos to them. But I can't always just do that and sit and listen. Sometimes it's passive. So Dave's the only podcast you don't want to shout out anybody else's that you're listening to now.
Well, I mean, yeah, in all honesty, I don't really listen to anyone. I would listen to Dave Smith, and I would listen to Michael Malice. That was pretty much it. And then it wasn't until after I started doing videos, whenever I found out that there were all of these other people doing podcasts. Like, I had no idea. I wasn't really on Twitter. I started the Twitter to promote my YouTube channel. And then over time, like, the Twitter overtook the YouTube channel somehow. So yeah, I had no idea about all of these other shows or anything. But yeah, I mean, Clint's cool. No Way Jose, he's cool. David Brady, he's a good young kid. Reed Coverdale, of course. Nick Ashley, although he doesn't really do podcasts anymore. Maybe he'll go back to it. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of them, and they're all really, I endorse every single one of them.
You should not do that. Or even this one. I'm surprised. Have you been asked to go on a show that you've had to research and then realize that's not the show you should be going on?
I do look into every show before I say yes, and there has not been any yet where I've said, no, I'm not going to go on.
Oh, so no standards. That's good to hear.
Yep.
Okay. So this show, by the way, I decided you're coming on here. I'm going to stream to Odyssey. So it should be going to Odyssey as well. This will be, my virgin experience here. How is it working for Odyssey? I know you've talked a lot to people about the difference Odyssey and library and your experience there, but is it going well? And is that a green screen you have? Do you need a green screen for your job? Is that behind you?
No, the green screen was mostly for those vlog videos that I started doing. But then somewhere along the way, I was like, that's too much work to green screen visuals in on that too. I just want to talk. So, I mean, Odyssey bought me that green screen. So it's a pretty good job. It's much better than anything I've done before. I am very blessed and grateful that I work for Odyssey. That was basically just, I was doing my thing on Twitter and on YouTube, and all of a sudden Jeremy Coffey messaged me and asked me if I wanted a job. And that was basically all that happened. But But I mean, yeah, it's great. I get to work from home. I get to do something where it's like I really believe in what I'm doing, and it's cool. I mean, not a lot of people can say that they work for a tech company or a social media site or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
How busy are you with it? Is it a 9 to 5 job? Or are you just doing stuff as you like project wise? You don't have to get into too much, but I am somewhat interested.
Yeah, so I try to work I do try to work like 9 to 5. So I'll work for a couple hours in the morning, then I'll take a break to like eat. Then I'll work a few hours in the evening. I mean, it is to where like on Saturday I might get a message and I need to hop on and do something real quick. Because I mean, the website never stops running. Or maybe on Sunday I'll get a message and it's like, yeah, I need to do work real quick. But I mean, yeah, I do try to keep kind of a normal schedule. But if there's something that I have to do, then I got to do it.
Do you see this as a long-term goal or a job, career, I guess, for you?
I mean, ideally, yeah. I would hope that I think Odyssey, I think it's a good, like before I worked for Odyssey, I was using Odyssey. I think it's a good website.
Yeah.
I think it'll be around, like, even if it doesn't overtake YouTube. I mean, there's still a niche there for a censorship resistant website. So yeah, I think it'll be around for a while, and I think it is a good gig. Yeah.
One thing I actually did a super chat to Josh when Jeremy Kaufman was on his show, because my question was, I've had a YouTube channel for years doing cycling videos and all kinds of stuff and kind of similar type of podcast. And I get struck down by copyright infringement from these companies. And I've gone to battle with them and I end up winning because most times they just don't understand. They just like to immediately. Matter of fact, I did when I had Power Hour guys on here. We were doing the video of the late night. What was the one? Which late night host? Colbert, where he had the vaccine mandate video that was super cringe. They tried to strike that one as well. And so it seems like to me, Odyssey doesn't, because they can just do that. And then your video's gone and it takes a month or so to even be able to come back up. And that is, to me, it's immediately guilt. And then you've got to prove your innocence. Whereas it seemed like to me, Kaufman was stating, and you may or may not know this, but I have found that it seems to be this way, which is there's a copyright infringement, they'll do it. And then the process goes and your video's continuing up until that situation is resolved. That is much better situation, especially the abuse that's going on. So at least on that aspect, I mean, there's all kinds of other problems with YouTube, but I do like that on Odyssey. Any comments there?
Yeah. So a lot of the thing with YouTube is that it's all just bots. So like there are song bots where if you play 5 seconds of a song, then it'll just automatically say that, oh, copyright infringement. And then, a lot of this has to do with just copyright law and the DMCA, which sucks. So, I mean, I don't think that, because a lot of it is just YouTube trying to cover it themselves, because they had a lawsuit with Viacom over people uploading copyrighted stuff. So, I mean, they are just trying to get sued, but at the same time, it is bad for creators. And on Odyssey, we don't really have any automated systems like that. At some point, we will develop like a good copyright system. But I think ideally, and the way to do that would be you favor the creator over the person making the copyright claim. Like the person making the copyright claim should have to prove why it's a copyright violation, not the creator proving why they should be able to use it.
Yeah, totally. On big tech. So got a Brady here says thoughts on Gitter as opposed to Twitter. And that was quite the barrage last night. I know of people going over there. I mean, I'm over there now. For someone got the reason. Any thoughts?
Well, they pulled down one of my tweet, or not a tweet, whatever they're called. They pulled down one of my posts. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, gets. I don't know. I posted a meme, which, was kind of offensive. I probably don't want to say the word on YouTube that was in it, but that was pulled down. I think that it is probably just like Trump Twitter. So it's, maybe a little bit more lenient than like Twitter would be, but there's probably still a lot that you can get banned for. Nick Fuentes is already banned. And, the site's only been around for a few months.
I didn't know that, but that does seem, I mean, look, for the most part, I'm not going to go on any of the platforms and just try to rage posts to see what the limits are, read. But I know it's fun to do. And, I don't know. I haven't got banned or even suspended yet on Twitter, and probably won't be because I do try to take some sort of care. Have you had any trouble on Twitter?
No, I've never gotten like a temporary ban or like a notice or a warning or anything. So I've been pretty good. I have had a couple shadow bans, which is really annoying because you'll get like 100 followers a day, 70 followers, 120. And then it's like 0, -5, -12. And it's like, you guys are really just trying to throttle. I'm just growing too fast. You guys are really trying to throttle me. So that's annoying, but otherwise I haven't had to deal with anything.
Yeah, growing too fast has not been my problem over there. Although I did get the Dave Smith follow the other day, which to me was it's about as good as I can really do. So
And you got that cheeseburger guy, right?
I did. Sometimes things just fall in your lap, right? Like I looked at Cheeseburger Burglar was there and Dave Smith. And it was actually that tweet. Then I had tagged him in it. I'm like, oh, I always wanted the Cheeseburglar follow that got him another retweet. And that got me actually a bunch of followers. So praises to Cheeseburglar for that. Dave, follow up, is library working on something like Twitter that's less circle jerky, kind of like an Odyssey version of Twitter?
So library is not, but the thing with library is entirely open source and anyone can build a website off of library. So like there's a music website built off the library blockchain. So even if we don't build a Twitter, like Twitter alternative off of the library protocol, anyone can. So like if there's someone else watching this and you think that that's a good thing, learn to code, as they say, and you can make that. And I don't know, maybe someday Library Inc. will do it themselves.
Michael Ravel says, what's up? Thank you. So when you went on the road to Providence, you had some advice, I would say, for David Brady, or young man there. You did a good job, by the way, of asking him some questions. I thought that was pertinent because it gave me a little bit more info to dox him. And with that, I now know his age. And with that as well, I could understand some of the advice you gave, which was, there's a few of them in there. One was not to go to school, perhaps. And the other one, I'm trying to remember what the other one was. But let's talk about your school. You've really waded into, and you could refute me on my comments here. You're going to school stuff, and recently abortion, you've jumped into that as well. And you've also jumped into beating children. I thought they were all fascinating as your defense was, you can't say that just because I don't have kids, I can't say not to do that. Why are you wading into these waters? And do you want to clarify any of those?
So with the school stuff, I would say, I don't say don't go to college, but I do say, think about it, because college isn't for everyone.
Don't try, I think is what it really was.
Don't try. Yeah, that was something. I mean, like if you're someone who hates school, I mean, that's a good strategy. They're going to try to push you through. If you hate school, then just stop trying. That's what I did.
Just to break in on that though, look, I've seen you on Larry Sharp as an example. I watch your videos. You're no dummy. That advice probably works for someone like you or some other young chap who is, go-getter and thinks on their own. There's some of those people out there that really they should be part of the herd and probably should try a little, because they're trying a little is still suffering.
Yeah, I do appreciate that feedback. I mean, there are some people to where, your best bet is probably just doing good in school, going to college, getting a 9-to-5 job. You don't just want to be lazy. Like if you have no other motivations and you just don't want to do school because you're just like, I'd rather just smoke weed or something like that, then get your stuff together. But if you are someone who is more motivated than that, and you have ambitions outside of whatever your school teachers want you to do, then focus on that. But okay, what else were we going to talk about? So schools, spanking, and what was the other one?
You had waded into on abortion. I thought that was an interesting take as well.
Yeah, the abortion one, I mean, there's not really that much to talk about there. I was always like
why are you wading into that?
Why am I wading into that? Well, I sent out the one tweet and went on Austin Peterson about that. I really haven't talked about it that much. I think that a lot of it is just like with the Section 230 stuff, I don't really care that much about it, but it's like I see people making dumb arguments, and it's like I have like the actually thing in my brain where it's like I just have to tell them this argument's dumb.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably just something like that. Like I see people making arguments for abortion that I just don't think hold water at all. Like they're saying, I can't even think of any right now. Like, what's a dumb one? Like they'll say stuff like a lot of it. Hang on, let me gather myself. So like a lot of them, they'll say stuff like, well, it's my body, my choice. And why does the fetus have a right to be in my body if I didn't put it there? Or why does the fetus have access to my body? And it's like, you chose to have sex. You put it there. Just dumb stuff, which that was pretty bad explanation, but stuff like that. So as far as hitting your kids, that was something to where I don't remember what sparked that. Yes, I do. There was a tweet of a lady freaking out, and all the conservatives' response to that was, this is what happens when you don't hit your kids. And that kind of kicked off my rampage about that.
I will say, look, and I saw that one too, and I don't have disagreements with you on any of those. What's interesting though, and so I have a son that's your age. Okay, he's probably a little bit older than you. He's 21, but I think he turned 21 before you did. And so I have 4 kids. Did I spank them? Yes. And it actually disappoints me when I look back at that now, without having to come up with, like seeing stuff on Molyneux's, peaceful parenting, and hearing a lot more of this thing. It bothers me that I went through that I put my kids through that, because at some point you start to realize, at their age, it doesn't matter. You can beat them as much as you want. They're not going to do anything. Matter of fact, you take away their games or you do other these things, it's going to make a bigger impact completely. So, I have some of that disappointment. Were you, and maybe this is too personal, but since you're wading into it, were you spanked as a child?
I would not really. I was spanked like a couple times, and I can tell you the 2 that I actually do remember. One time at preschool, I bit a kid, which, yeah. Which, what it was, we were playing tag, except we called it wolf, and I was the wolf. And whenever a wolf catches you, he's going to bite you. So that was my thought process as a 4-year-old. And then the other time I tried to steal a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards at Walmart.
Oh, wow.
Those are the only 2 times I ever thought. I was a really good kid. Like, my dad tells me whenever I was a baby, I never cried or anything. Like,
wow.
I think I give off now like a passive type of energy. Like, I'm very laid back. And I've just always been that way. So yeah, they'd never spank me or anything.
Yeah. And so I do family law. And one thing I do know, once you go into court and the state's involved in your relationship, they pretty much say no more corporal punishment. They don't want either side to do it, which is perfectly fine. But, your comment about, and I think it was on Twitter that the conservatives were kind of like pushing for this and cheering it on. My feeling just from my clients is they all do it, and they all object to it, or they don't do it at all. So it's a,
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's really specifically a conservative. Like, I don't think it's specifically a conservative thing. Like, black families are a big demographic who spank. Like, they vote Democrat, but that if you see where they are on Sunday, they're at church and then they spank their kids. So it may just be more of a Christian thing or like whatever, than because a lot of them say spare the rod, spoil the child. So it may just be more of a Christian thing than a conservative thing, but still there's a lot of overlap there. But I think that it is something like, if you're a parent and you don't really know anything, you just know that like, hey, this is how I was raised, you just spank your kids. I think that is like forgivable. Like, people don't know any better. Like, it is what it is. I think that there does cross a line. Like, there was a guy saying that, you probably think smacking your kid in the mouth is abuse. And it's like, yeah, I do think that's abuse. And if you smack your kid in the mouth, you're a piece of shit. But I think with just spanking, like, it's understandable. Like, people are trained to do it. Same thing with circumcision. Like, if you ask a parent why they got their son circumcised, it's just the doctor asked me if I wanted to, and, I got circumcised. So it's like, yeah, that's just what you do.
Is this your next battle, circumcision?
I sent out a couple of tweets about circumcision and I got like no pushback. So I guess people agree with me.
Well, so a few years ago, my wife and I, we were in this town, Bend, Oregon, where we were. We were staying over there, and we were walking over to this nice area, and these guys were protesting. They were protesting circumcision. It was their grown adults, and they had all white on, but their crotches were stained red, and that's their. So maybe those could be your people in the fight. Those are.
I mean, they could be. There were like a couple of people who replied to that, but they were the same people who were mad at me over the spanking stuff. So like, I guess it's just all the same. These people can't admit that maybe they shouldn't have been circumcised.
I think a lot of it too, like you're talking about both of those. And I thought your conversation with Austin was really good about the abortion thing. One, because you're not trying to browbeat people. And so like the spanking, you're giving the benefit of the doubt to the parents that like just maybe don't know any better. And everyone thinks that that's what you do. You hit their butt and you're good to go. And you're not going to change their mind by calling them like a criminal, right? You're a domestic abuser. So is there any way that you think that that's a possibility of like changing minds and hearts is the way to go about it? Or do you think we should berate them a little more? I'm not saying you're berating them at all.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's less about convincing people who are already parents or already had kids in the past who are now grown. Because people like that, I mean, most of them don't self-reflect and think back on it. So I think that it's more about convincing people like my own age and people who haven't had kids yet.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, because these people will say, oh, you haven't had kids, you don't understand. And my thing about that, this is one point that I did not make in the video, but my dad called me on the phone and asked me to explain it more. And this is something that I thought of then. I don't think that these people who say you haven't had kids yet, you don't understand. It's not like before they were parents, they researched all of these different parenting strategies and then they had their kid and then they tried it out and then they found that spanking worked the best. There are people who went into it thinking, I have to spank my kid. And then the first time their kid threw a tantrum, they spanked him. And then that's all that they ever did. They don't know any better. So their experience, sure, they had that experience. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think that's exactly it. They haven't put a thought. No one's actually, and I do like the way Dave projects the peaceful parenting, because he doesn't just, and actually he and Lewis have talked about this, where it's not just, oh, it's not okay to beat your kid. It's then giving examples of how this works and why. And I think once you start to rationalize it as a parent, it's much different. I mean, look, you get parents all the time. They haven't done any, are they going to look at a book about how to parent? Most likely not. They go to some classes or whatever. And then what happens is, I don't care if that's even the case. The child comes out and they're screaming and they're freaking out on you and you're now emotional. And so now you've got to try to parent that with the emotion. You're not going back to what my book say, you're just smack.
Yeah, going back to your point about should we berate them or not. So Stefan Molyneux, he convinced a lot of people about the spanking thing. And he was way more harsh about it than I was. So he would say, if you did spank your kids, even if you regret it now, like you had all the resources, you could have researched this yourself. So, I mean, it's your fault if you did it, which I don't really go that far because I think that people are just trained to do it. And I mean, he would consider things like raising your kid as a Christian or to believe in government as abuse, which I don't go that far with it. I did say that spanking is abuse, but obviously like it's not at the same level as beating your kid with a switch. I mean, obviously there are levels to it. But one other point, and this is another analogy that I made. If someone asked me, Drew, what does it take to be a good husband? I couldn't tell you. Like, I've never been married. I don't know. But I can tell you don't hit your wife. Likewise, if someone said, Drew, what does it take to be a good parent? I don't really know. I've never been a parent. But I can tell you don't hit your kids.
So I would actually push back a little bit on you. And the reason being is because you've said nothing but in your videos and here about what I perceive to be a good relationship with your father, which would be you're on one of those sides of the spectrum, right? You're not a parent, but you're on the child side. And did your dad treat you well? I mean, almost everyone could come out of this and say, my parents were great. Hey, maybe my parents had a great, loving relationship and I saw what it was to be a good husband, or maybe I saw what it was like to be a good dad or a mom. So I think, don't sell yourself short in a sense.
That's a good point. I actually, when the vlog I made about it, I actually was going to say that as a joke, like as a former child, I feel like I have a lot of experience in this area. And then for whatever reason, I didn't. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
No, and I actually think that's important. I mean, I see that with, what I do with divorces, and I don't counsel these people because I'm kind of heartless, but I do try to tell them that I did have a girlfriend tell me I was a Tin Man once, but whatever. That if you do the same thing in a new relationship that you just did in the last one, you're going to, once again, I don't care if it's all her or his fault, you're going to cause more problems again. So, learn from your mistakes and evaluate that and move on. And with that in mind, people are changing different perspectives, and I'm kind of changing this to the libertarian movement of you are in the Mises caucus, you're kind of out of it. But I think it's important, that other people have moved from, libertarian ANCAP to post-libertarian, there's all these different views. And I think it's important when we do move away from those and we have a different perspective that we look back and that we understand kind of where we were on that and not necessarily burn the bridge there. So your blue-pilled libertarian video, I reference a lot. And when I reference it a lot, I'm also saying I think it's very important to have these blue-pilled libertarian people and moments and institutions, because I did not do the, conservative to ANCAP. I went through Reason, and not Reason, but the magazine actually. So what's your take on those institutions? Are they necessary?
I like Reason magazine. So, I think I say this in that video. John Stossel was one of my biggest influences. Like, I love John Stossel, and that dude is completely blue-pilled. Like, he was saying, I don't care if the NSA spies on me because I got nothing to hide. So, but that being said, like, John Stossel, he's awesome. He was a big part in influencing me. So, like, the way I found about libertarianism, my dad supported Ron Paul. I listened to Ron Paul through that. And then I started getting into it. So I started listening to John Stossel, watching his show. And then, I got into like the Reason magazine type stuff. It's a good segue because, I don't think that it probably is possible, but I think it takes a very specific type of person to go straight from being like a Republican who likes George Bush or Mitt Romney to an ANCAP. Like, so maybe I think that it's true that there are people who benefit just from getting the radical message straight off the bat, like Ron Paul was doing that whenever he ran. But then there are also people who probably need to be segued into it a little bit.
Yeah. We'll divert back here a little. Mike Ravel, How to Talk to Kids So They Will Listen is a book I read when my first son was less than a year. It's a great book. I have not heard of that one. Have you?
I have not.
Okay, maybe we'll check that out. Look, the blue-pilled stuff. I mean, you mentioned too about kind of having that reaction of like, actually, and I had that today when I saw some people and I bookmarked it and I just haven't even gone back to it. I think it was Scott Adams, and then I think the head of Twitter was going here about fire in a crowded theater. Now that everyone likes to yell that out or literally and figured and reference it, but that case was overturned the year that Joe Biden got his law degree. Literally, it was so far back, and he's even referenced it. Maybe he's too old for that. So, it freaks me out. And then all I want to do is rage tweet at these people, and that probably doesn't help as well. So I don't know if sometimes I feel like it's necessary to push really hard on some people because they shouldn't, really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to go at them. And then other people that, I have to remember I was once in that space too. And, there's still some things came from the conservative side, and there's still some things I kind of hold on to, which we don't need to necessarily get into, which is, I'm kind of mixed on the border issue as an example. So how do you feel about some of the arguments? I saw you and Ace were on with Clint, and by the way, it ends my show with a clip of you guys, but, that debate was very necessary, and I thought it was very well done. Is that the mode you like to take, or do you prefer to just come out and do like Jose, where you just kind of bashing everybody?
Listen, if someone on Twitter like comes at me first, then I'll say the most like mean thing that I can think of without getting myself suspended. But that's rare. Like mostly whenever people like come at me and they like insult me, I just block them. But every now and then I like to respond back. But with that debate with Clint, I will just say on that, so I still stand by saying that I would prefer leaving it up to the business's choice. That being said, if a state like Florida or Texas wants to ban discrimination on the basis of vaccination status, I'm probably not going to be that vocally against it. Like, it is what it is. That just is what it is. But that being said, like, I do like to be cordial. I don't like to be mean to people who have only been nice to me. I don't like to just come out and just be hostile right off the bat. It's just not kind of who I am. So,
No, I haven't seen you do that too much. So on that message of like the DeSantis stuff and that argument you guys had there, what do you base your reasoning for? And this is where I'm kind of getting with. I see the post-libertarians or some of these that really go, because I'm somewhat in agreement with you more than the other side, but I get where, I live in California and it sucks here. And I was hoping that our governor would be recalled, so you'd have someone come in and just kind of push back just so, to stem the tide in a sense. But then that's only going to be used against me in later times when we're not in power or whomever that is. So, but there's things that drive my life, which are kind of principles, and those principles might be incapacitated in my head. And if you want to relate it to religion, you've got religious principles. It doesn't mean that you don't live in the real world and that shit happens, but you still kind of revert back to what's your guiding point. So I take it as somewhat of a slight when the comments are out there about living in Capistan in your head, because those to me still guide me as to what is good and bad or what I have decided to do. Otherwise, what is your guiding principles? What's your take on a lot of these people that like to push back? What do you think is guiding them, and if anything? And then would you want to be ruled by them even if they're on your side?
Yeah, so with the whole like Capistan in your head thing, if I didn't think my principles worked in reality, I would not hold them. And it's that simple. Like, yeah, I think that my principles work in reality. That's all there is to it. With these people, I'm trying to think. With the vaccine or the mandate thing specifically, there were a lot of just arguments that I thought were just extremely stupid, and those were the ones I was replying to. Tho Bishop was the only one who had an argument that wasn't stupid, and that's the one that kind of made me more on the fence on the issue, which is that there are already protected classes. We live in a civil rights society, not a property rights society. So ideally, yes, we wouldn't live in a property rights society where anyone can discriminate for whatever reason. That's not what we live in. So all you are doing is making the enemies of the regime a protected class, which I think that is a great argument, and I think that that's a great point. For the most part, all of the other ones were stupid. Like people were saying, your company can't force you to get vaccinated. And it's like, well, it's not force. And whenever you start going down the rabbit hole of saying that your employer can force you to do things, then you're ceding a lot to communists and socialists who say that, oh, wage slavery, you're beholden to your boss or whatever. So, I mean, you get problems like that. But with these Capistan in your head people, like, okay, if you don't believe in the principles, you don't believe in the principles. Like, that's fine. I do believe in the principles. Yeah, I'm an ANCAP. Like, that is all there is to it. I think that it works in reality. Democracy, the God that failed, is getting in tomorrow, so I'm going to read more Hoppe. I'll just say that, and we will just see what my thoughts are on that. But yeah.
Yeah, I need to get into some Hoppe. Look, maybe we'll move away from this. So I could do the question, who are you wearing? It looks like you've got Under Armour and a KC hat. So let's talk about your Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. Why Kansas City Chiefs? Probably due to your location, I take it. Has this been a lifelong an issue with you?
An issue. So there's actually, a baby photo of me wearing Chiefs stuff whenever I was a couple months old. So yeah, pretty much it has been a lifelong issue. I'm not a bandwagon Chiefs fan, which is something that a lot of people probably think. I was a fan of in 2011, whenever I was in 6th grade. I don't remember how exactly it came up, but my English teacher asked me if I was a Chiefs fan, and I said yes. And she said, "I am so sorry for you." So that's how long I've been a Chiefs fan, whenever it was embarrassing to be one. But yeah, I mean, I went to my first game in 2007. Whenever I was a 7-year-old, I went to a playoff game in January of 2011, then the home opener the following year in September of 2011, then the home opener the next year in 2012, and then a bunch more since then. It's a lot of fun. And I mean, it's just fun. It was a good way to bond with my father because he was a big Chiefs fan too. And I think that's the main thing with sports. Like, it's as much about being able to watch something with someone else and like being able to enjoy it together with like a whole group of people than as the game itself. So like going to Arrowhead Stadium, which is where they play, I got the picture behind me of it. Mm-hmm. And Patrick Mahomes throws a touchdown pass and you and 70,000 other people all cheer at the same time. Like, it's awesome. It's great.
Yeah. The dad part is huge. So I grew up in the Northwest. My dad grew up there as well. And so I just took all the teams he did. Now, since I'm 50 and my dad's almost 80, you can understand the teams at the time. There was the Niners, as an example. They were the only team out here. He liked the Yankees because, well, there was no baseball this side of the Mississippi at the time. So he took a team that was, hot in the 60s. And for football, the basketball was the LA Lakers because, once again, they were one of the first teams that came out here. So it sounds like a bunch of bandwagon teams. Now, for the most part, yes, but I remember the days of the 49ers. Matter of fact, I was sitting on the couch with my dad watching the 1980, championship game against the Dallas Cowboys, the catch. And so all before that, we had horrible players. So yes, then I suddenly got this dynasty, which has been a wonderful thing. But, times come and go. I appreciate that. So I've told you, look, I've loved sports. We talked about this before we came on here. And I have just I don't I hate LeBron James. I don't even follow the Lakers anymore. And I was a huge fan. I'm in the 80s era. I don't know. You're younger. I get it. But we had, the Larry Birds, the Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, this whole big, conglomerate that we had. It was great basketball. Same with baseball. And now I don't watch any of them. I flirt with a little. I saw the Niners win yesterday and it was okay. But, they kind of suck still. So my question to you is, I'm slowly getting pulled away from these sports that were so involved. Sorry to delve in here a little bit. I had this, when I was a little older than you, someone did like a bio thing of me, the newspaper, because it doesn't matter why. But I said my favorite TV show was ESPN Sports Center. That's how, it was that big. But I'm not into it anymore. Do you feel that there's a pull away from sports, and is politics ruining it? I don't even understand. I'm trying to ask you for some psych eval. Why am I not interested in sports anymore?
With ESPN specifically, yes, I would say politics is ruining it. So yeah, I would wake up for school every morning and my dad would make me breakfast and we would have Sports Center on and that's what we would watch and it was awesome. And now all the Sports Center shows are absolutely terrible. Like Jamel Hill, who's awful on Twitter, she was on one of those shows, which should give you an idea if you know who she is of how bad it became. And like Mike Ditka, he was on the Sunday Countdown forever and he left because he said they were too liberal. Like that's kind of the stage that ESPN got to. So I think there's part of it that's that. There is like they're trying to shove all of this Black Lives Matter messaging in your face. Not as bad in the NFL as it is in like the NBA, but I mean, it's still there and it is still something which I can look past it. But there's some people who that turns off entirely and I get it. And I mean, it is something to where like last year as a Chiefs fan in 2020, they went 14-2. They went 14-1 under Patrick Mahomes, and it was extremely boring. And there were no fans in the stands, and it was like, I mean, it was
COVID related.
Yeah, COVID related. There were no fans in the stands, and the Chiefs games they had it at like 10% capacity.
Yeah,
but that was a very boring season, to be honest. And part of that is just because the Chiefs were so dominant, and it's like I don't even need to watch them like they're going to win until they got to the Super Bowl, and then of course they got blown out and embarrassed. But this year with the fans back in the stands and with the Chiefs not being absolutely dominant, like it's been very entertaining and it kind of recaptured my love for it. Cause yeah, it was kind of falling away there for a little bit, but I mean like my dad, he's 40. How old is he? He's 46. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And yeah, so he's starting to get tired of football too. So, I mean, maybe it's just something that happens when you get older. Whenever I was in high school, like the Chiefs were my life. And now I still like watching it, but it's not that much of a thing anymore.
So I'll say it's, well, first Shannon says she's got a few comments here. Go Dolphins. We don't have to acknowledge that. I love when Tyler chats with kids. Thank you. Yes, even as a chick, love sports and politics have ruined it. I get that.
Wait, can I just say on her Go Dolphins thing? So listen, whenever you're like a Patriots fan, they had 20 years of boring football where like they're just like, yeah, the Patriots are going to win. Whenever you're a fan of an awful team and they turn it around and then they become like dominant, that's when it's the best. So Shannon, you got to stick in for your Dolphins. Eventually they'll get it turned around.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Look at what else we have here? Magoo, he came in and said more like Boar Center. Am I right? Okay.
Yeah.
This is a horrible take here. I used to like football, then politics.
David, you're too young. What are you talking about?
He called Tyler old. Well, I am. Drew, he's 44. Okay. So look, as far as the Chiefs go, so I moved to Denver at one point in my life. I hated the Broncos, partly from the snowball. I don't know if you ever remember that, but they threw a snowball when the Niners, I think, were trying to kick a field or extra point, ruin the game for him. But I always hated the Broncos. So you and I could probably commiserate on our hate or whatever. Back in the day, your team, did they ever win a Super Bowl before Mahomes? I don't think.
They won Super Bowl 4.
That's right. And then I remember Derek Thomas dying like in 2000. That was pretty tragic. So I've always enjoyed Joe Montana went to your guys, and you also had another quarterback from the Niners there as well. So I've never disliked the Chiefs, especially if they've ever been able to beat the Broncos, which hasn't always happened. How is your relationship with like Cole, Fat Dave, since he likes the Broncos? Which does that make any sense? Have you ever understood why a dumbass from Alabama likes the Bronco. Well,
Well, that is why I understand. Yeah, he's a dumbass from
I
Alabama.
think I just answered it. Okay.
Yeah, but no, he had on his old account replied to me with like, "Oh, how does it feel to be in last place?" Because the Chiefs started off 3-4, and I didn't screenshot it. I bookmarked the tweet, and of course he got suspended. So I have no evidence of him saying that because there was a time whenever the Chiefs were in last place and the Broncos were tied for first, and now the Chiefs won the division and the Broncos are in last, and I have no way to rub that in, which is painful.
Right. So I just people are saying here that politics has ruined different sports. Mike Gravel saying he still watches Phillies games. Good, but has maybe the interest in politics ruined sports? So in other words, I'm on Twitter. I'm tweeting about politics all day instead of looking at stats and about my teams that I like. Which one is the cart and which one's the horse?
People who say sport. Yeah, I don't like the whole sports ball thing. Like it's people who think that they're too smart to watch football. The thing is with football is very, it's a very dumb way for intelligent people to spend a lot of time. Because if you know anything about football, you know about all the X's and O's and all these fancy play designs and all of this cap management. People who are involved in the NFL, like in the executives and the coaches, they're all very, very smart. Like Andy Reid, the head coach of the Chiefs, is a literal genius. Like I would not be surprised if he was an actual genius. So it is a very big time sink. So people who kind of denigrate it that way. I was putting a lot of time into football this season. So I bet a lot, and for a couple of years, I've been getting into like NFL modeling and telling me what bets to place and stuff. And that was just something to where there was a lot of work that went into it every week. So I just stopped doing it. But yeah, I mean, I'm still into it. It's still fun, but yeah, not to the same extent as it was.
It's like what happened with the Atlanta and Coke pulling out. Total politics, I imagine. I mean, it's tainted. I told you back in the green room. By the way, which show has the nicest green room?
Yours.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. That my dad was so into the Niners that I always called him. People would say, "What does your dad do?" I'm like, "Oh, he's a scout for the Niners," but they just don't know it because we had he had a 49er belt buckle, which he never wore. But I mean, it was just over the top of knowing everything about the teams. I had a question here. I don't even remember what it was.
Well, whenever so the Chiefs got Andy Reid as their head coach. I was in 8th grade, and he's still their head coach. I can tell you every single score from every single Chiefs game going back to 2013 his first year. It is something you can get really deep into it, and there's a lot of stuff there.
I guess my point was that even my dad, so I just saw him last week, losing interest, and it's not because he's getting older. He's raging about Trump and other things. I mean, he's a Trump fan. So, I mean, so maybe that's pushed it all. It's crazy, actually I could say he hated the BLM stuff, the national anthem, what's your thoughts on this? I don't know how much time you have. You got a few more minutes or?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. So, when Kaepernick came out, I didn't really have any problems because one, I thought he was kind of a sucking as a quarterback anyway. And I think he was only kneeling down because he was getting benched. But when he comes out with not the pig socks, but the Fidel Castro shirt, which that to me was the crazy part. What did you think of Kaepernick and his legacy, basically, of pushing the NFL at this point?
I mean, listen, the whole kneeling thing, that just is what it was. Whenever my dad and I would go to sports events, we wouldn't take our hats off for the national anthem either, because it's we're freaking libertarians. Okay. I don't care. Shannon, I'll just say I called my boss old earlier, and he's in his early 30s. So I'll tell you that. So I mean, with the whole kneeling thing, I didn't care. But then it's you come out the Fidel Castro shirt, and it's okay, who do you think's more oppressive, Cuba or the United States government? Which it does also go to the whole thing. Now I stand for the national anthem. I don't really care because I love America. There's nowhere else I would rather live. That just is what it is. With the whole politics thing, I haven't let it ruin it. It is annoying. That's a good point, Colonel Sanders. Because there's a lot of time that goes into it. You could be doing other stuff. But I mean, It did for my dad. Like, that's kind of why he doesn't watch anymore, just because of all the Black Lives Matter stuff. He felt like it was getting shoved in his face, and he just doesn't want to watch it anymore. And he totally lost interest because of that.
Yeah. With the COVID stuff, sports went away, right? So we had to come up with other things like riots and things to take our time.
Yeah.
I watch bike racing. I know people are like, what? Yeah, it's like a European thing. So that was still going on for some reason. That was okay. Magoo, gay people still eat at Chick-Fil-A. It's possible to see past the politics.
That's a good point.
That's a tweet.
I will say with the NFL, I was more annoyed at the COVID stuff and making the players wear masks and not letting people in the stands. I was more annoyed at that than the Black Lives Matter stuff. And now all of that stuff, for the most part, is gone. They're still forcing their players to get vaccinated, but that is what it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, just what's interesting with a lot of this stuff goes back to a lot of the things we've discussed today. My parents, big right wingers, I've been able to talk to my dad about just, look at the Constitution has been what's it done for you lately? How about the police? They're the ones arresting these moms at the park. And even what was interesting with the BLM stuff and Kaepernick to begin with, I had some lefty friends, and I was arguing with them about that. And they were expecting me to take on the mantle of police do no wrong. And my thing is a little bit different. I come from a different aspect, and it threw them off because they were like all racist. And I'm just like caught bad. And they're like, wait, their mind was a little twisted. But maybe it was a good opportunity that was missed on many people to kind of argue that point with the BLM people.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were some of those people who got mad at me because in my first video on cops, I say systemic racism isn't the problem with the police, but regardless, we should abolish the police. And then instead of agreeing with me instead of looking past the racism stuff that I say doesn't matter, they instead focus on that. And they're like, oh, well, you're a cop apologist. And it's like, I'm literally saying in this video, I don't think that the police should exist. So, I mean, there was an opportunity for outreach and stuff like that. I'm not really into the whole party politics stuff anymore. So if Spike Cohen can worry about all of that stuff, I think that, there's crossover there.
Yeah. Okay. Colonel Sanders. Well, yeah, you just can't deny the deliciousness of God's chosen chicken, even if you disagree with their politics.
Chick-fil-A is completely overrated. It's not that good. I prefer Zaxby's. I prefer Popeyes. Chick-fil-A is like, Popeyes. Chick-fil-A is bleh.
Well, see, I'm in California. I don't even know where I'm at. I don't have any Zaxby's or Popeyes. We do have a Chick-fil-A, and they have ice cream, which is pretty good. I don't really get their chicken, but anyway. Last one maybe here we'll do here. Shannon says, so I have a 6-year-old and I tell her she can stand for the pledge or she can sit. I stand, but tell her why I stand for it. She's 6. I don't want her pledging to a state. What do you think about that? Are you there still?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was staying still. The pledge is stupid. The national anthem, that is what it is. I'm fine with that. I mean, your kid, if they're in public school, they're going to memorize the Pledge of Allegiance anyway, and they're going to have to do it every morning. And if they don't do it, then they're going to be the weird kid that everyone else laughs at. So if you do have a problem with your daughter doing the Pledge of Allegiance, then they should not be in public school.
You know what? Do you remember this is Drew's most controversial take. It could be the chicken story. Do you remember back in the day, and you might be too young for this, so there was a whole, there was a guy out here in Sacramento that filed a lawsuit on his daughter's behalf and took it, I think, to the Supreme Court to not have the Pledge of Allegiance said in school. He was an atheist. He was kind of an outspoken guy, and it got turned down for standing. Basically, they said, you didn't even have custody of your child. You didn't get to do that. So they kicked it out. And I remember at the time, and especially in right-wing radio, that was a big deal. But when you kind of take it back, and I think its argument actually works with family now, which is, okay, but why are you, Obama was president. You wanted to pledge allegiance to him, and I know they would take a little different thing to it, but it is weird that you have a pledge of allegiance in school. Tom Woods has said, would Walmart make you do this? Wouldn't you think that was a little weird? But you're willing to push your kids into taking the pledge, Drew? Is that where you want to stand on today?
No. So, I mean, listen, it's the whole Prussian thing that the whole thing is to make you loyal to the government and all of that sort of stuff, which I've talked about before. And, what better way to educate or to propagandize children into making them memorize a literal Pledge of Allegiance to the state?
Right. David says, Drew dislikes Chick-fil-A, blocked. And I don't think David wants that to block you. Just saying, I think the power.
I will block you back.
Right.
Just going to say that.
Shannon, it's okay. She knows school's like a prison. I did a tweet this weekend because I started thinking about Michael Malice talking about in school where you can't hit back. If you do hit back, you're suddenly, you're both suspended. So also I was thinking about how Rittenhouse, maybe a lot of the problems with the hatred of the Rittenhouse defense is the fact that he was defending himself, and we've propagandized these children from day one that, you don't even get to defend yourself in school. Why would this person outside of school be able to defend himself as well? Do you think that had anything to do with Rittenhouse?
I saw that tweet, and that was a great tweet. I think that that's a great comparison. I don't know if that's what it was, but I think that that's still a great thought and a great thing to point out. Whenever I was in school, my dad always told me, if someone hits you first and they're trying to beat you up, then fight back. Kick their ass. And that was always what I was told, which I think that's entirely fair. And people look at this now. So whenever I was with the Mises Caucus, this really annoyed me. People would attack the Mises Caucus and call them Nazis or whatever. And then the Mises Caucus, they would strike back. And then everyone would be like, whoa, guys, stop just attacking each other. Let's all get along. And it's like, they started by attacking the Mises Caucus. Right. You can't expect the Mises Caucus not to fire back.
Right. And especially that's the kind of attitude that we're looking for, right? I mean, when you were in the Mises Caucus, you're all about kind of being able to take it to them rather than, and that's kind of the post-libertarian, I think, aspect too, which is interesting that, they're leaving with their own idea, but yet that is still the idea, which is to maybe strike first, even though it's a NAP violation. Do you have any intent with the LP going forward? Is it, you're just kind of in limbo? Is there any chance of bringing you back into that? Or, I mean, I'm a member of the Mises Caucus, but I don't know. I don't really know what my point in all this is.
Yeah, I mean, not really. So I was starting to lose interest in it anyway, and now I'm busier than I was before. Politics just don't really. I did take Taekwondo whenever I was a kid, and I made it to, I think, red belt. So
I made another tweet this weekend, which was I was watching Cobra Kai, and I'm like, I swear none of these people have heard about the nap, and I don't know if that's going to be bad or not. But have you watched Cobra Kai and the old original Karate Kid?
I've watched the original Karate Kid. I have not seen Cobra Kai.
It is fantastic, and the reason I say that is because they just kick each other. Kids are having a brawl at school, quite literally. They tear up, Daniel's house. They come over there. They're fighting there. No one's put in jail, and they just resolve everything through their fists. They actually, I think, are going out of their way to somewhat be kind of satirical in a sense with it. They do draw from a lot of the old movie stuff, which is great as well. And then they are pushing back against woke culture. I mean, the one girl came out and she introduced herself as, my pronouns are she and whatever. And I remember what his comment was, but it was basically like, fuck you. We just worry about kicking an ass. That's what ours are. So check it out. That's what I'm saying.
I'll tell you what, whenever I was a baby, I was really good. After I got older, I was really good. There was about a 3-year period where I did get in trouble in school several times for hitting people. So I will say that in elementary school, I was kind of a fighter. So
not a lover, but a fighter.
Exactly. I got it all out of my system.
Anything you want to, okay. So in the description here, I do have your link tree. I have all your links here. So we should be good to go with that. Anything that you're coming up with, projects you want people to, maybe on your Gitter account. I didn't link that one. I guess I could do that. We're mutual. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone wants to follow me on Gitter, then go for it. I'm not too sure how much I'm going to be using it, but probably not very much a week from, I might use it for the next couple of days. A week from now, I'm probably not going to be posting on it at all, in all honesty. But just the stuff in my link tree as far as specific projects, not really. I got stuff that I'm working on. I have more ideas. I've been tossing around an idea for another video on blue pill libertarians, focusing more on the red pilled side of that. So that's something that I've been tossing out, and I might do this next week, but we will just have to see.
And what are the odds for KC? I didn't even follow along. Are they making the playoffs?
Oh yeah, they clinched their division, so they're in. Now it's just a matter of the seeding.
And how's Mahomes looking?
He's the greatest quarterback of all time. He's way better than Brady.
That's
and I'm not saying that ironically. I 100% believe that.
Okay, maybe one day if I paid attention anymore, I would come back to that. Look, I'm a Mahomes fan. I think he's a good guy. I enjoyed, once again, I don't hate KC. And that's, to me, part of the problem when I'm watching football now is I take the team I hate the most and I just go for the other team. So, I don't know. Thanks, Drew. Any last words before we head out?
Nope. Later.
Okay. Well, hang around just a quick second. Appreciate everybody joining us for Libertarian Podcast Review. Follow Drew everywhere, especially over on Odyssey. And thank you. Come back to my show whenever. We'll play more clips, more of Drew. Thanks, everybody.
I just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.